Hey guys, for once we're not really talking about the giveaway, and this is going to be a very short episode. And the reason we're not talking about the giveaway is because we're not quite to 100 subscribers. We have just 5 to go. So congratulations to all of our previous winners, but we got 95 subscribers and we need 100. We just need to scrape up 5 subscribers somewhere. So please share my videos. Those of you who have subscribed, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. In the meantime, let's talk about something really exciting that's come out in the news in the last 48 hours. So in my video, Blue Origin Sucks, I spoke kind of disdainfully about the idea of space tourism, about sending up a capsule for a few minutes into weightlessness so people can come back down and get astronaut wings as if that's no big deal. And I still think that. It's no big deal. But recently, SpaceX has teamed up with Space Adventures, who's been sending people to the ISS on Soyuz capsules for quite some time to provide a kind of space tourism experience that I just couldn't imagine. Now, of course, it's going to be a lot more expensive. It's going to be a lot more involved. But this is the kind of space tourism that I think is worth investing in. Why? Because it's going to put a lot more money in the coffers of SpaceX. Money that's going to go into the Starship. So, without any further ado, let me show you what this is going to involve. So, some pretty morning in 2021 or 2022, the Crew Dragon capsule will await some unusual passengers. Doubtlessly some very, very rich passengers, but not astronauts, private citizens. Since we've seen a Tesla drive up here, whoever's stepping out of that car might very well be Elon Musk himself. Although we'll see if he has the guts for it. So, as these private citizens make their way down the gantry, along with at least a couple of crewmen, I would estimate, but there will be 4 civilian passengers. The 9 Merlin engines on the Falcon 9 will roar to life with almost 2 million pounds of thrust, taking the rocket and its civilian passengers into orbit. And you will notice that I didn't say suborbital flight, but full-fledged orbit. There goes the first stage to the Falcon 9, back to land to be reused. The second stage, however, does not get reused. The Falcon 9 is still not a fully reusable ship, but there's the view from the space station, assuming that the Crew Dragon was going to the space station for a visit, as Space Adventures has arranged in the past, but that is actually not what's going to be happening here. This SpaceX video only covers visits to the station. No, it will be far more amazing than that, because this trip will take the civilian passengers to orbit the Earth at a height of 2 to 3 times that of the space station, or greater than man has ever flown since the Apollo era. And that's civilians, not NASA astronauts. Unbelievable and unprecedented. This isn't just a few minutes into suborbital flight. This is 5 days in orbit. And Here we are, re-entry after the separation of the crew and service modules. Broke parachutes to slow down the re-entry. Crew on board. Maybe a little bit nervous, but getting a grand view. Returning and probably feeling a little sad after their 5-day journey to a soft landing in the Atlantic Ocean. What a remarkable experience. Now, of course, there's a reason why I called this the full Monty space tourism. Suborbital space tourism, like Blue Origin is putting forward, is, well, I'm about to get really crude here. So any kids watching, stop. Okay, I'm serious about this. All right, let's go on, shall we? Suborbital space tourism is like sex involving premature ejaculation. You get a few minutes of bliss and then it's over. And you are just left wanting for so much more. Whereas this gives you 5 straight days of bliss at an altitude higher, as I said before, than mankind has flown since the Apollo era, experiencing a view of the Earth that even astronauts aboard the ISS don't get. And people who have the money to spend 200 grand to go into orbit for a few minutes and experience a few minutes of weightlessness, we don't know how much this is going to cost, but I'm going to take a guess based on the overall cost of sending up a Falcon 9 mission and put it at $15 million per person. If they're willing to spend $200,000 for a few minutes, do you think they might be willing to spend, say, $15 million for 5 days? It's entirely possible. I looked up how many people's net worth on the planet could accommodate something like that. People who had at least $100 to $300 million, and it's over 100,000 people. So if even only 10% of them wanted to give that a shot, that's an awful lot of customers and billions of dollars of revenue. I'll tell you something, if I have to admit, even $50 million, I'd be willing to invest 30% of it for an experience like that. That's just me, of course. In any event, it's pretty exciting. It's exciting not just for the concept of sending up a civilian not an ordinary person, a rich person, but nevertheless an ordinary person to an orbital height higher than astronauts on the ISS get to go. I mean, that's amazing in itself, but also to really, really start to take space tourism to the next level. Not just a few minutes of suborbital experience, but days and days in orbit, getting a little taste of what it's like to live in space. I'll tell you something, I'm really excited about it. But before I go, I want to show you a few things about my progress on the ISS. So have a look. Okay, so a few things got added on here, as you can see, and I certainly would put you to sleep trying to describe every little component of this amazing piece of equipment. But just to give you an idea of scale here, you're looking from this end to this end, a distance of over 100 meters or longer than a football field. And this main truss is only used essentially to support the station, to support the habitat modules, to support the solar panels, also to support these heat radiators. Now, why do they need heat radiators in space where it's so ridiculously cold? Well, a good section of the station faces the sun and gets baked by heat and radiation. And so that heat needs to be radiated out into space. which is the function of these components here. This, by the way, is an interesting component. It's from Bigelow Aerospace, and it's an inflatable habitat. And the intention was to determine whether or not Bigelow's plan of putting inflatable orbiting units, essentially for orbiting hotels, would actually work. And so far, this habitat has held up pretty good for several years. So once again, a whole lot of components to this Lego set, and all of them pretty doggone accurate. And here's the other side of the station. Some of the things that you've already seen, the Kibo, for example, and the Columbus, and the docking port, where the space shuttle used to dock, and also where the Dragon, one of the locations actually, where the Dragon currently docks, and the Crew Dragon will ultimately dock when it flies in early May, God willing. And then we have a neat little device here, the Canada arm. And it is used to grapple and manipulate objects in space, such as this, which is to represent a Soyuz capsule or perhaps a Progress supply ship. So it grabs these, and you can actually detach it, which is kind of neat. So use it to grab objects in space and bring them in, which makes it a lot safer if you're attempting a docking rather than doing it without any guidance whatsoever. Also, we can take our little Soyuz out of the way and move the Canada arm. You can see that there are multiple communication disks. The ISS has perhaps the most sophisticated communication system that humans have ever built. I won't say on Earth because it's not on Earth. And it operates under what's called S-band, KU band. Also, ham radios can even communicate with the ISS. They can get high-speed internet access on the ISS, and all of this is relayed through geosynchronous satellites, or most of it is. And also, they have a specific dish, this one here, that's used to communicate with incoming spacecraft and also with EVA crew members. Oh, and by the way, I mentioned in the description that there would be a hidden challenge. So here it is, and it has nothing to do with the ISS. If you had the money, would you pay to go on the Crew Dragon? First of all, yes or no, and why? I just don't want a yes or no answer in the comments. I also want to know why. And then secondly, on top of that, what sort of functions do you think these missions with the Crew Dragon can carry out? Aside from just 5 days of orbiting the planet, what other things could be done? Since it's not going to the ISS, what sort of functions could be performed aboard the Crew Dragon besides just space tourism? Again, put these in the comments, and I will award 5 entries into the ISS giveaway for every comment, as long as they're decent ones. So in any event, there's your hidden challenge, and that's the end of it for today. So until our next episode, I promise this would be relatively short, stay angry about space.